Jupyter notebooks are, according to a definition of the famous computer scientist Donald Knuth, a literate programming environment. They are an environment that allows you to mix text, code, and as we have seen, also media. Jupyter notebooks are very intuitive and easy to use, but in this video I'm going to give you a quick introduction to their main features. Jupyter notebooks are organized into cells. There are text cells, like this one and that one, and as we have seen, there are code cells, like this one. Code cells are easily recognizable because of the brackets to the left of them, but also, if you look at the top toolbar, you see that the type of the cell is marked as code. Now, code cells can be run, and in order to run one, you can either click on the play icon here, or you can hit Shift-Enter, which has the same effect. If you create a new cell, which you can do by clicking on the plus button here on the toolbar, by default it will be a code cell. And you can enter some code into that, such as a print instruction or, as we will see, a simple arithmetic operation. When you run this cell, you will get a result. Code cells in these notebooks are written in Python, so this is a legal Python operation. And by the way, these cells that display the videos are also Python code. But for the time being, we will just take them for granted and not go into the details. What is not that clear at first sight is that text cells are also written in their own language, that is a markup language, quite appropriately called Markdown. You may never have heard of Markdown, but you have certainly heard of another markup language, and that is HTML, which is a language in which web pages are written. Now I will spend a lot of time in this course teaching you how to program in Python, but first of all, let's learn a few Markdown basics. Now, Markdown cells can also be run, which you do in the usual way, and when you run a Markdown cell, it just renders the text. How does the Jupyter Notebook know that this is Markdown? When you highlight this cell, you see that the type here is reported as Markdown. Note that if by chance you get this wrong and this cell becomes code, when you try to run it, this will give you an error. So let's turn it back to Markdown and run it again. There it goes, and run. Likewise, if you take this cell and you mark it as Markdown, when you try to run it, it will just render the text without doing anything. So remember, if cells behave in a strange way, always check the type and make sure that Python code is marked as code and Markdown, so text is marked as Markdown. Now the Markdown syntax is very easy. You see that here we have a link. This is essentially verbatim quoted code, and here we have more code, and this is bold, and here we have a list of bullet points. When we click on this cell and we display the source, you will see that the link is actually quite easily coded in this way, with square brackets around the text and round brackets around the link proper. That code can be quoted by putting 3 quotes in front of it and 3 quotes behind it, and the same for these. Bold can be obtained by putting 2 asterisks in front and at the end, and finally a series of asterisks marks the bullet points of the list. Titles are marked by a hash character. You can edit these Markdown cells to add your own annotations, or in fact, you can create a new cell and change it to Markdown. And for instance, here I can write something like that. If you edit one of these notebooks, for instance by adding code, running it, or changing the text, you may want to save it, and the way you do it is by clicking on this icon. If you now make further changes, and then you want to revert them, you can basically revert the notebook to the last checkpoint that you saved. The notebook will reload, and as you see, the changes I didn't want are gone. However, all these changes are saved in the cache of your browser because this entire notebook only runs in your browser. Therefore, these changes will be lost the moment you clear your cache. Now, if you want to create a more permanent copy of this notebook, you can click on this icon here, which will take you to a file manager page. Here you can select this notebook and then click on download. This will allow you to save the notebook to your machine. If you save the notebook to your machine, you will then be able to run it locally on a local Jupyter notebook installation, which typically comes bundled with a Python distribution. Or you will be able to upload them, for instance, to Google Colab, if you are familiar with that environment. Or otherwise, you will always have the options to upload them again to the same environment once you open one of these web pages again in your browser. Now this file manager page probably opened in a new tab, so let's go back to the tab where our original notebook was, and let me now show you what happens if you accidentally delete some part of the notebook that you didn't want to delete, or otherwise break it in some way and want to go back to the original version. First of all, a simple option is to go to the Edit menu and use the Undo option. So you may try, for instance, to undo an entire cell operation, which in this case will restore the video that I had accidentally deleted. But let us assume that, the damage is too large and this you think is beyond repair. So, no need to panic, the original notebook is still there for you. If you try to simply reload this page, unfortunately, you will still see the cached version, which includes the unwanted changes. What you need to do is go back to the file manager, select the notebook that you want to restore, and click on Delete. You confirm the operation. For some reason on my machine I still see the notebook, however it's gone. When I now go back and reload the page, I will be shown the original version again, with our video restored. So, this concludes our quick introduction to Jupyter Notebooks. Feel free to explore and to discover the other features for yourselves. And remember that there is nothing you can break and that you can always restore the original notebook as I have shown you.